For years, my mother belittled my dreams, calling me lazy and unremarkable. I graduated summa cum laude despite her no-show. I emailed her never to attend future milestones. When she praised my published article publicly, I archived her comment. Quiet revenge tastes sweet. My finger hovered over the screen, trembling like a leaf in a storm. Philadelphia's late spring light, weak and gray, filtered through the single window of my tiny studio apartment, illuminating the dust motes dancing above the laptop. On the screen was the digital graduation invitation. Claire Evans, Bachelor of Arts, summa cum laude. The words should have felt like triumph. They felt like a target. Summa cum laude. Claire, sweetie, don't embarrass yourself aiming so high. Realistic? Mom's voice, sharp as shattered glass, sliced through the present. I was 17, hunched over calculus at 2 a.m., eyes burning. Her shadow fell across my textbook. Someone like you has to work twice as hard just to be average. Don't expect miracles. I blinked, the memory dissolving only to be replaced by another. 18, opening my college acceptance letter. Hands shaking, hope a fragile bird in my chest. Penn State? Well, it's no Ivy, is it? Just try not to flunk out. Can't afford wasted tuition on a lazy daydreamer. Her sigh had been heavier than any textbook. Unremarkable people need practical plans. Claire. Good for nothing. The label echoed, bouncing off the cheap plaster walls of my apartment. I'd papered over them with maps and cheap prints, trying to make it feel like a home, not just the place where I studied myself hollow trying to prove her wrong. Every late night fueled by ramen and desperation, every perfect paper scored, every scholarship scraped together, it was all ammunition against that single, corrosive word, unremarkable. My thumb traced the digital send invitation button. The gown in the corner, still wrapped in plastic, seemed to mock me. Would she come? Would she finally see? My phone buzzed on the chipped Formica counter, vibrating against an empty coffee mug. A new text. Mom, remember, I'll only come if you really deserve it. Don't make me sit through mediocrity. The air left my lungs in a rush. Tiny apartment suddenly felt suffocating, the gray light oppressive. Deserve it. After 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears swallowed in silence, after a lifetime of being told I was less than. My knuckles whitened around the phone. The sting was familiar, a deep old bruise pressed hard. But beneath it, banked like embers, a different heat ignited. Fury. Determination. A raw, desperate need to shove this diploma, this summa cum laude, right into her narrative and watch it burn. I wouldn't crumple. Not this time. I deserved this. I'd earned every goddamn letter. My finger jabbed the screen, sending the invitation into the digital ether before I could second-guess the war I'd just declared on 22 years of dismissal. The screen flashed sent. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. The battle lines were drawn. Now I had to survive the wait. Sunlight streamed through the massive arched windows of Penn State's old main building, painting golden stripes on the worn linoleum, but it couldn't reach the chills settling deep in my bones. My backpack felt heavier than usual, loaded with textbooks, and the phantom weight of that sent invitation. Every step towards my morning lecture echoed Mom's text. Don't make me sit through mediocrity. Cluster of familiar faces from my sociology seminar stood huddled near the water fountain. Laughter drifted my way, light and carefree. Then, as I passed, a fragment snagged my ear, sharp as a fishhook. Evans, yeah, Claire, honors thesis is supposed to be insane. But dude, her mom never comes to anything. Not even the undergrad symposium last fall where she presented. My breath hitched. I kept walking, head down, pretending to be engrossed in my phone's blank screen. Another voice, lower, followed me. Heard it's bad. Like really bad. Her mom thinks college is a waste for her or something. Her words coiled around my ankles, threatening to trip me. Shame, hot and prickly, crawled up my neck. Unremarkable. Good for nothing. Mom's voice amplified by strangers. Defiance flared, a brittle counterpoint to the shame. Summa cum laude. I clutched the strap of my backpack tighter, knuckles white. Let them talk. I had the grades. I had the thesis. I had the damn invitation sent. Their whispers couldn't erase that. The library became my sanctuary later that afternoon. Hushed quiet, a bomb after the exposed hallway. I found Maya tucked into our usual corner carrel, surrounded by a fortress of law textbooks. Her dark curls were piled haphazardly on her head, held by a pencil. She looked up, her warm brown eyes instantly narrowing in concern as she took in my face. Claire, you look like you wrestled a bear and lost. What's up? I sank into the chair opposite her, the familiar scent of old paper and dust offering a fragile comfort. For a moment I just stared at the grain of the wooden table, tracing it with a fingertip. How to voice the constant ache. The words felt thick, dangerous. It's my mom. I finally managed, my voice barely a whisper, glancing around instinctively even though the nearest students were rows away. She texted, about graduation. Maya leaned forward, abandoning her highlighter. What did she say? The echo of the hallway whispers mixed with Mom's cutting tone. I swallowed. The usual, that she'll only come if I really deserve it. The phrase tasted like ash. And then she said I'd embarrass the family if I graduate with honors, that it's overblown. My throat tightened. Saying it aloud made it real, made the sting fresh. Maya's expression hardened. Oh hell no, Claire, that's not just unsupportive, that's cruel, deliberately cruel. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine where it lay clenched. Her touch was warm, grounding. You do deserve it. You've worked your ass off for this. Every late night here, every weekend you skipped going out, you earned this, not her. Tears pricked the back of my eyes, but I blinked them furiously away. Crying in the library felt too much like defeat. I know, I whispered, the words feeling fragile. Logically, I know, but hearing it still gets in. Makes me feel like that kid again, like nothing I do is ever good enough. Maya squeezed my hand. Then stopped letting her voice be the loudest one. I have to talk to her, Claire, seriously, before graduation. Tell her how this makes you feel. Demand some respect. She doesn't get to tear you down and then maybe show up for the photo op. Demand respect. The concept felt foreign, terrifying. Confronting Mom was like stepping into a cage with a tiger. Decades of ingrained doubt roared in my ears. Who do you think you are? Ungrateful. Dramatic. But beneath the fear, Maya's words sparked something else. A tiny, stubborn ember of anger, of self-worth. I looked up, meeting Maya's fierce, supportive gaze. Weight of the whispers, the sting of the text, the crushing doubt, they didn't vanish. But a new resolve began to crystallize, hard and sharp. I nodded slowly, the movement feeling significant. You're right, I said, my voice gaining a fraction of strength. I need to say something. The thought sent a tremor through me, but the ember glowed brighter. I couldn't walk across that stage with her words still ringing in my ears. The battlefield wasn't just graduation anymore, it was home. I had to face it. The smell hit me first. Lemon-scented cleaner layered thick over something older, mustier, the ingrained scent of disappointment. Stepping into my childhood bedroom in the tidy suburban split level outside Pittsburgh felt like stepping into a museum exhibit titled Claire Before She Got Ideas. Nothing had changed. The faded band posters curled at the corners, same as the day I left for Penn State. My old debate trophies, coated in a fine layer of dust, sat on the shelf like forgotten relics. Third place, regional finals. Mom's voice whispered in my memory. Couldn't even win the big one, could you? Always the bridesmaid. I dropped my overnight bag onto the narrow bed, the floral quilt scratchy under my palm. 4 years of college, Summa Cum Laude looming, and this room insisted I was still the girl who needed constant correction. The air felt thick, suffocating. Footsteps sounded in the hall, light and quick. Mom appeared in the doorway, holding a laundry basket. She didn't smile. Her eyes, the same shade of hazel as mine but colder, swept over me, then the room, landing dismissively on my bag. Spring break already? Hope you're not planning to just laze around. That capstone won't write itself, though goodness knows you seem to think you have all the time in the world. She shifted the basket onto her hip. Honestly, Claire, the way you carry on about this graduation, the honors, it's getting to be a bit much. An overblown sense of self-importance, if you ask me. Something inside me, a dam holding back 4 years now, a lifetime of swallowed words, cracked. The hallway whispers, Maya's fierce support, the echo of unremarkable, it all surged up, hot and bitter in my throat. I turned to face her fully, the dusty trophies at my back feeling like silent witnesses. Overblown. My voice sounded strange, tight but clear. I worked for this, Mom. Every single grade, every scholarship, that capstone, it's groundbreaking. My advisor said so. Summa Cum Laude isn't overblown, it's earned. I took a step forward, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Why can't you ever just be proud? Why is it always cutting me down? Her eyebrows shot up. For a second, surprise flickered, then hardened into familiar disdain. A brittle laugh escaped her. Proud of what? Following some silly dream instead of something practical. Nursing, teaching, something useful. You always had your head in the clouds, Claire. Books won't pay the bills and all this drama. She gestured vaguely at me at the room. You've always been so dramatic, so sensitive. Can't take a little constructive criticism. Constructive? The word ripped out of me raw. Calling me lazy, unremarkable, good for nothing. Telling me I'd embarrass the family by graduating with honors. That's not criticism, Mom. That's cruelty. My vision blurred. I hadn't realized tears were coming until I felt them hot on my cheeks. Her face contorted. Was it anger or something else? Her own eyes suddenly glittered with unshed tears, but her voice remained sharp, laced with a venomous hurt. Cruelty. After everything I sacrificed. The money, the worry, ungrateful. That's what you are. Just like your father. Always wanting more. Never satisfied, never good enough. A single tear tracked down her powdered cheek, but it felt like a weapon, not a surrender. The sight of her tear, juxtaposed with her vicious words, was a sucker punch. It twisted the familiar ache into something sharper, more confusing. My own tears felt like weakness, a confirmation of her sensitive label. The dusty air pressed in, thick with decades of unresolved pain and toxic love. I couldn't breathe. Explaining, justifying it was pointless. Chasm between us was too wide, filled with too many broken words. I swiped angrily at my face. Without a word, I grabbed the textbooks I'd brought to work on, thick, heavy shields, clutching them hard against my chest. I pushed past her, the scent of lemon cleaner choking me. Her voice followed me down the hall, shrill now. Where do you think you're going? Claire, don't you walk away from me, after all I've done. The front door slammed behind me with a satisfying, hollow thud. I fumbled for my car keys, hands shaking violently. Cool spring air hit my face, a relief after the stifling house. but it did nothing to ease the raw, ragged hole torn open inside me. As I yanked the car door open and threw the books onto the passenger seat, one desperate, terrifying thought echoed louder than the engine's roar. Could I ever truly break free, or was her shadow something I'd carry forever? The silence in my Philadelphia apartment wasn't just the absence of sound. It was a thick, smothering blanket thrown over the screaming echoes of that Pittsburgh living room. I stood frozen just inside the door, my keys digging into my palm, textbooks still clutched like debris from a shipwreck. The drive back was a blur of taillights and choked back sobs. Now, the familiar space felt alien, charged with the fallout of words that couldn't be unsaid. I didn't turn on the lights. The fading city glow through the window was enough. I dropped the books onto the small table, with a thud that seemed too loud in the stillness. Need to do something to build something against the crushing weight of her voice, her tear-streaked face, her accusations was overwhelming. My gaze landed on the cheap, spiral-bound notebook abandoned on my desk. I snatched it up. The first page tore out with a vicious, satisfying rip. I grabbed a pen, the plastic cold and hard, and I wrote, not thoughts, not reflections, words, the words she'd planted like poisoned seeds over 22 years. Lazy. I scrawled it, a pen digging deep, unremarkable. Another page ripped free. Good for nothing. Tear, overblown sense of self-importance. Rip, you'll embarrass us. The paper tore jaggedly this time. Ungrateful. Dramatic. Sensitive. Never good enough. Page after page, each bearing one of her venomous barbs. I didn't cry. My hand moved mechanically, exorcising the ghosts. When the notebook was half empty, a pile of crumpled, hate-filled pages lay scattered at my feet like fallen soldiers. I stared at them, then one by one I picked them up, walked to the small trash can beside my desk, and dropped them in. Each one felt like shedding a pound of lead. The ritual began that night. Before crawling into bed, exhausted but wired, I stood before the dark window reflecting a pale, fragmented version of myself. My voice was a raw whisper in the quiet room. I earned my place. I am capable. I am enough. The words felt clumsy, foreign on my tongue, direct challenge to the ingrained narrative. But I said them. The next night I laced up my worn sneakers after midnight. The streets of my neighborhood were deserted, pools of orange light from street lamps my only companions. I ran, not for fitness but for fury. Each pounding footfall on the pavement was a hammer strike against the image of her disdainful face. Unremarkable, my breath burned in my chest. Good for nothing, my legs pushed harder. The cool air whipped past my ears, silencing the internal echoes. If only for the duration of the run. I returned drenched in sweat, muscles trembling, but my mind felt scoured clean, temporarily quiet. My desk became my forge. Late into the night, long after reasonable people slept, the soft glow of a single candle flickered beside my laptop. I rewrote my capstone thesis introduction for the 10th time. I dissected feedback, refined arguments, chased elusive perfection not for her approval, but as an act of defiance. Summa Cum Laude wasn't just a grade, it was my armor, piece by painstaking piece. The victories were small, silent explosions. An email notification. Thesis draft approved, excellent work, Claire. A grade posted asterisk a plus asterisk. Each one sent a jolt through me, pure, unadulterated validation from the outside world. I'd lean back, a fierce, private smile touching my lips. See, I'd think the defiance a warm ember in my chest. I did this. But then always the pang. My eyes would drift to my silent phone, dark and accusing on the desk. No call, no text. No acknowledgement. Absence of her voice, even a cruel one, left a different kind of hollow. The one person whose pride should have been a given remained a locked door, barred from the inside. The silence after the storm wasn't peace. It was a desolate landscape where the only sound was the relentless forging of my own strength, wondering if the armor would ever feel truly complete without the war ending. The envelope felt heavier than a brick in my hands. Official university seal. Thick, expensive paper. My name printed in crisp, undeniable ink, Claire Evans. For a moment, I just stood in the dim hallway outside my apartment mailbox, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, the weight of it anchoring me to the spot. This was it, the tangible proof. Inside my apartment, I placed it on the small table, the only clear surface besides my perpetually cluttered desk. I washed my hands absurdly, like I was handling something sacred, and with fingers that only trembled slightly, I slid a thumb under the flap and tore it open. The program unfolded, a crisp rectangle of cream-colored paper smelling faintly of ink and formality. There it was, nestled amongst the schedule of events, the list of distinguished faculty, the university crest, the line for guest. A single blank space waiting for a name. My breath caught. Mother. The word formed instantly, reflexively in my mind. A lifetime of conditioning. Desperate, childlike hope flickering stubbornly beneath layers of newly forged armor. My hand moved, almost without conscious thought, grabbing the pen lying beside my laptop. MOT, I stopped. The pen tip hovered over the paper, a tiny bead of ink threatening to bloom. The image of her face in the doorway, tears tracking through powder, her voice sharp with venom. Overblown sense of self-importance. The echoing slam of the front door. the suffocating silence of my return, a pile of discarded insults in the trash can. Did I want her there? On the day that was supposed to be my triumph, my vindication, would she sit in the audience, radiating disapproval, ready to dissect every moment afterward? Or worse, would she simply not come, leaving that empty seat a gaping wound visible to everyone, confirming the hallway whispers? My knuckles whitened around the pen. Inviting her felt like handing her a knife and baring my throat. It was an invitation to sabotage, to diminish. It was begging for crumbs of approval I now knew, deep in the marrow of my bones, she was fundamentally incapable of giving. But not inviting her, that felt like surrender of a different kind. Like admitting she'd won, that her voice still held the ultimate power to exclude her from my life's milestones. It felt like letting her define the terms, even in absence. A tiny, treacherous part of me whispered, What if seeing your name called, seeing the honors, actually changes something? What if she finally sees you? The conflict was a physical ache in my chest, hope warred with self-preservation. The need for mother's pride battled the hard-won knowledge that expecting it from this mother was pure self-destruction. The blank space on the program seemed to pulse, growing larger, heavier, silent question mark hanging over my entire future. My thumb found the small eraser on the end of the pen. Rough, gritty. I pressed it hard against the faint graphite mark where I'd started writing mott. I scrubbed, back and forth, small, furious movements. The graphite smudged, then faded, leaving a gray, abraded patch on the pristine paper. Gone. Mother was erased, but the space remained. Stark, empty, accusing. I didn't write Maya's name. This wasn't about filling the slot. This was about the monumental decision of whether to extend the olive branch into the viper's nest. Leaving it blank felt like an act of terrifying defiance, a declaration that I refused to set myself up for her particular brand of pain on my day. Yet, it also felt like a door slamming shut, maybe forever. I placed the program carefully on my desk, right in the center, pushing aside notebooks and stray highlighters. Gray smudge where Mother had briefly existed stared back at me. The blank guest line beneath it felt less like an omission and more like a battlefield drawn in ink and paper. I sank into my chair, pulling my knees up to my chest. Outside, Philadelphia hummed distant traffic, a siren wailing blocks away. But inside my tiny apartment, the silence was absolute, heavy with the weight of that single, unmarked line. I didn't move. I didn't turn on a light. I just sat there, staring at the program as dusk deepened into night, the blank space a silent scream in the quiet room. What had I just done? And what price would I pay for leaving that battlefield empty? Sunlight, impossibly bright and cheerful, streamed through the massive windows of the Bryce Jordan Center, glinting off the sea of black gowns and mortarboards. It felt like a mockery. My own gown, crisp and unfamiliar, rustled with every nervous shift. The cap sat heavy, the tassel brushing my cheek. Inside my chest, my heart wasn't just pounding. It felt like a frantic bird trying to batter its way out of a cage. Breathe, Claire. Just breathe. I sat rigidly in the front section reserved for Summa Cum Laude graduates, my palms slick against the smooth polyester of my gown. The air hummed with excited chatter, the rustle of programs, the distant wail of bagpipes warming up. Families clustered in the stands, flashes of cameras sparkling like distant fireflies. My eyes scanned, a desperate, involuntary sweep. Rows of proud faces, fathers beaming, mothers dabbing eyes, siblings waving. Strangers, all strangers. She wouldn't come. The thought was a cold stone settling in my gut. I'd known it, hadn't I? The blank space on the program had been my declaration, but some stupid, hopeful part of me had still looked, still ached. The dean stepped to the podium, his voice amplified, warm, welcoming. The ceremony began. Names rolled out one after another, met with applause, cheers, occasional whoops. Each burst of sound was a tiny needle prick. I kept my gaze fixed straight ahead, on the stage, on the university seal. My hands clenched in my lap, hidden by the folds of my gown. Unremarkable. The word tried to slither back in. I shoved it down. Summa cum laude, groundbreaking thesis, you earned this. But the void where a mother's pride should have been felt like a physical chill in the bright, crowded arena. Then it came. Clear, resonant over the speakers. Claire Evans, Bachelor of Arts, Summa cum laude. The air left my lungs. Time seemed to stutter. Brief, terrifying silence followed my name, the silence where her applause should have been. It lasted only a heartbeat, but it stretched, hollow and echoing. Then from somewhere to my left, a familiar voice pierced the quiet, yes, Claire, woo. Maya's unmistakable shout, raw and full-throated. Other cheers erupted around it, classmates, professors, a wave of sound that washed over me. I stood. My legs felt like wood, but they moved. Step by step, I walked towards the stage. Distance felt immense. Each footfall on the polished floor echoed not just in the arena, but deep inside my bones, resonating with every cutting remark, every dismissive sigh, every tear shed in that lemon-scented house. Lazy, unremarkable, good for nothing, overblown. The ghosts marched beside me. I reached the steps, ascended. The university president, a kind-faced woman whose hand I'd shaken at the honors reception, smiled warmly as I approached. She held out the leather-bound diploma case. "Congratulations, Claire. Outstanding achievement." My fingers closed around it, solid, real. The weight of it, the smooth grain of the leather, anchored me. I looked up, meeting her gaze. Not a flicker of doubt, not a trace of the trembling girl from the apartment. My chin lifted. My eyes, dry and clear, held hers. In that moment, captured by the official photographer's lens, I wasn't seeking approval. I was claiming what was mine. As I turned to face the audience, diploma held aloft for a brief, symbolic moment, my eyes instinctively swept towards the section reserved for guests of honor students. Front row, center. The seat was empty. Just a vacant blue chair amidst a sea of occupied ones. A stark, undeniable void. The cheers swelled again, Maya's voice loudest among them. I found her instantly, standing halfway up the bleachers, jumping slightly, her face split by the widest, most triumphant grin. My own lips curved, a real smile this time, small but fierce. It wasn't the smile of a daughter validated. It was the smile of someone who had climbed the mountain alone and finally reached the summit, the wind whipping her hair, the view breathtaking despite the solitary ache. The applause washed over me, warm and real, a wave of recognition from the world that saw me, even if she didn't. I held the diploma tighter, the leather case cool against my palm. This was my victory, and the emptiness beside it, that was hers. The cheap plastic chair of the corner cafe booth felt solid, grounding, after the echoing vastness of the arena. Outside, late afternoon sun slanted across Philadelphia sidewalks, painting everything in warm gold. Inside, the air smelled of roasted beans and toasted bagels. Maya sat across from me, her mortarboard discarded on the seat beside her, her dark curls escaping their earlier neatness. She raised her chipped white coffee mug. "To Dr. Evans," she declared, her voice still hoarse from cheering. "Summa Cum Laude," to finally being done. I clinked my own mug against hers. The ceramic made a dull thunk, not the bright chime of champagne flutes I'd vaguely imagined. It felt more real, more me. "To being done," I echoed, the words tasting like dust at first. I took a sip. Bitter, strong, no sugar, just how I needed it. The diploma case lay on the booth seat beside me, a tangible weight. My phone lay face up on the worn formica table. A silent, dark rectangle. Throughout the ceremony, the walk to the car, the drive here, a part of me had vibrated with a sick, hopeful dread. Maybe she'd had a change of heart at the last minute. Maybe she'd texted, called, left a voicemail choked with unexpected, impossible pride. My thumb brushed the cool glass screen. I tapped it awake. The lock screen showed the time, the date, a generic cityscape photo. No notifications, nothing missed. I swiped up, opening the call log. The last call was Maya. Yesterday, confirming cafe plans. Messages. Maya again, a group chat with classmates celebrating, a spam text about an extended car warranty. Nothing from her. The contact labeled Mom sat inert, no little red bubble, no unseen indicator. The finality of it hit me not as a fresh wound, but as the cessation of an old, persistent ache, like a tooth that had finally been pulled after years of throbbing. The space it left behind was empty, clean. I stared at the blank space beneath her name in the Messages app, the place where her cutting words or passive-aggressive emojis usually lived. Silence. A strange sensation bloomed in my chest, unfurling slowly like a flower in time-lapse. It wasn't happiness, exactly. Not triumph. It was relief. A profound, bone-deep relief. The exhausting vigil was over. The desperate hope, the crushing disappointment, the cycle had finally broken. I didn't have to brace for the next dig, the next dismissal, the next text designed to shrivel my joy. I was free. Tension I'd carried for years, coiled tight around my spine, began to loosen. My shoulders dropped an inch I hadn't realized they'd been holding. I took a deep breath, the air filling lungs that suddenly felt less constricted. Maya watched me, her expression shifting from celebration to quiet understanding. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I picked up my phone again, my movements deliberate now, no tremor in my fingers. I opened my email, a new message. Cursor blinked in the empty to field. I typed her address, the letters appearing with cold finality. The subject line came easily, graduation. My fingers hovered over the keys. What did you say to the architect of your deepest wounds? To the ghost who haunted your milestones? Not anger, not pleading, just clarity. A boundary drawn in digital ink. I started typing, each word chosen carefully, stripped bare of emotion, yet heavy with meaning. Mom, thank you for giving me life. I graduated today with Summa Cum Laude honors. I achieved this without your support or belief, but I achieved it. Please do not attend any of my future milestones, weddings, career achievements, anything. Your presence or lack thereof is no longer something I will factor into my life or my happiness. Claire, I read it over. Simple, direct. No accusations, no justifications. Just the facts. A statement of existence and a declaration of separation. Each sentence felt like severing a cord, and that had bound me to her toxicity long past its expiration date. The final keystroke sending it into the void wasn't an act of anger, but an act of profound, quiet self-preservation. The silence was no longer her weapon. It was my sanctuary. Philadelphia sunlight, the clear, strong kind of late summer, streamed across my new desk, a real one, with drawers that didn't stick, in an apartment with more than one window. It glinted off the sleek surface of my laptop. An email notification popped up innocently, a little chime shattering the quiet morning focus. Subject: article published Urban Echoes, reclaiming narrative in displaced communities. Dear Claire, we are thrilled to inform you that your article has been published in the latest issue of the Metropolitan Review. Please find the link below. My breath hitched. The Metropolitan Review, not some obscure academic journal, a major platform. My research, my words, my name out there. A fierce, quiet joy surged through me, warming me more than the sunlight. This wasn't just validation, it was a key turning in a lock, opening a door I'd only dreamed of knocking on. I opened the link. There it was. My name. My bio: Claire Evans, recent Penn State graduate, Summa Cum Laude, focusing on community narratives and social displacement. The article looked solid, professional, real. The culmination of late nights, relentless revisions, and a thesis forged in defiance. Without overthinking, I opened my personal social media app. My feed was mostly Maya's dog pictures and memes from college friends. I created a new post. Simple, clean, just the link to the article. And the caption: published my first major piece in the Metropolitan Review. Deeply grateful to the communities who shared their stories and to everyone who believed in me along the way. This one's for you. Everyone who believed in me. Maya, my advisor, professors who saw potential, the friends who offered couches and coffee during late-night writing marathons, the village that raised me when my own foundation crumbled. I hit post. The notifications started almost immediately. Likes flooded in. Congratulatory comments blossomed beneath the post. Maya's was first, predictably exuberant. Yes, queen, so proud, drinks on me tonight? Others followed, warm and affirming. I scrolled, a soft smile touching my lips, the genuine warmth of support, a comforting hum. Then I saw it, name that sent an involuntary, icy jolt through my system, even after months of silence. Mom. Her profile picture, a slightly too formal headshot, stared back at me. Her comment sat nestled among the others, stark and dissonant. Congrats, Claire. Proud of you. 2 sentences, 6 words, like a punch to the gut wrapped in cheap glitter. Proud of you. Words I'd ached to hear for 22 years, now tossed onto a public forum like crumbs to a pigeon. After the graduation silence, after the email boundary, after a lifetime of dismissal. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. The timing, calculated only when my success was visible, undeniable, public. Old reflexes twitched. Anger hot and sharp. The urge to scream into the void, to dissect the hollowness of her praise, to demand where was this pride when it mattered. The wounded child inside me trembled. But then I looked around. At my sunlit apartment, at the prestigious publication link glowing on my screen, at the cascade of genuine congratulations from people who had been there. The armor I'd forged, piece by painful piece, held firm. The urge to engage, to fight, to seek vindication in her eyes, it faded. It simply didn't matter anymore. Her opinion, her belated performative pride, held no power here. My finger moved, calm and deliberate. Not delete, archive. The comment vanished from public view on my post, tucked away in a folder only I could see. Visible if I ever chose to look, but unreachable. Silenced. I closed the laptop lid. The sudden quiet in the room was profound, peaceful. No thunderclap of drama, no satisfying confrontation. Just quiet. A small, genuine smile curved my lips, different from the one before. It wasn't directed at her comment or even really at the publication. It was for myself. For the girl who ran through midnight streets, who whispered affirmations in the dark, who stared down a blank line on a program and chose herself. I picked up my cold coffee mug and walked to the window, looking out at the bustling Philadelphia street below. Life moved forward, vibrant and demanding. My inbox already held drafts needing edits, new ideas sparking. The past, with its echoes of unremarkable and its phantom applause, could stay archived. The truest victory wasn't in the noise of recognition, but in the profound, liberating quiet of moving on, leaving the ghosts of your pain unacknowledged, and your future blissfully, peacefully your own.